Did you know your love for books could change lives? The For the Culture Book Awards isn't just any book contest. It's a celebration of diverse authors who create captivating stories that uplift African American culture. But here's the real magic. All proceeds from this amazing contest go straight to the Meet the World Image Solutions essay and scholarship programs. Yup, you heard that right. Every submitted book doesn't just uplift an author. It supports students who need a helping hand with their education. It's a win-win. Imagine the joy of knowing your book could help fund scholarships for talented young minds. It's about giving back to the community and opening doors for the next generation of writers, thinkers, and leaders. Submit your recently published fiction novel, spread the word, and let's make a difference together. Let's turn the page to a brighter future, one book at a time.
Feel the warm Caribbean breeze as you leave behind the noise of everyday life. Set sail on the Meet the World Writers Cruise. August 29th, 2025. An escape to a place where time stands still. And inspiration flows as freely as the ocean waves. No family, no work. Just you, your thoughts, and the endless horizon. Only 30 cabins are available. And the first 15 people to act get a $200 discount. Don't let this chance slip away. Your story deserves to be told. It's time to write your future bestseller.
Hey everybody, it's your girl, Dr. Rhonda M. Lawson, and this is Monday. It's time for a new episode of the Horizons Author Lounge, and I have a treat for you guys tonight. Sometimes, when you're doing the show and you start to invite authors to come on the show to promote their books, sometimes you don't always realize the gem that you're about to discover. And tonight is one of those gems. We are about to meet a man who just said, you know what? I know I have some history right under my thumb and didn't even know it. And when he found out about that history, he didn't just say, oh, that's really cool. He did something about it. So I want to introduce you to my first guest. There you are, Mr. Edwin Henderson. And he is going to talk about the grandfather of basketball, if I'm saying this correctly, of Black basketball. Am I saying this correctly? Uh-oh, you're on mute.
That's the full title.
There we go. There you go. All I heard was full title.
You want me to try it again?
Yes, sir.
The Grandfather of Black Basketball, The Life and Times of Dr. E.B. Henderson.
There we go. There we go. So you were telling me about it, that you just kind of happened upon this information.
Not really. I knew my grandfather from the first days that I was born. When I was born in Tuskegee, Alabama, my grandparents, should I say, drove down from the Washington, D.C. area to Tuskegee, Alabama. And it was a long drive back then in the 50s, much longer than it is now. Dave Meriwether Henderson in bed, and he held out until they told him that I was going to be named for him. It was fine. So I was always the apple of my grandfather's eye. And little did I know that, and his legacy.
Well, okay, you broke up a little bit, but you said little did I know. I didn't hear the last line of it.
That I would write about his legacy.
Awesome. That's amazing. Now, take me back. When did you, and I said at the very beginning, some people would say, hey, this is really cool. My grandfather did this, or this is great that my grandfather did that. And it almost becomes a bragging point. But you took it further because you said this is something that people need to know and they need to learn about.
Yeah. I in 2005, I nominated him to the Basketball Hall of Fame. I had learned that he was instrumental in introducing the sport of basketball to African Americans for the first time on a wide-scale organized basis. And any beginning point, no matter what it is important to the whole story. So I decided that we would, my wife and I, we would nominate him to the Basketball Hall of Fame. So we wrote up this 138-page booklet, sent that up to the Hall of Fame with letters of recommendation from people like Henry Louis Gates, John Hope Franklin, Earl Lloyd, the first black guy to play in the NBA. And we thought, oh, for sure, he was going to get in. Crickets.
Wow.
And
even with all of those people who kind of helped to nominate him and all the people who spoke for him.
Yeah, celebrity is more important in history to someplace like the Hall of Fame. But what happened was that the next year we decided no one read the book. So we did a 7-minute video, burned 28 DVDs, and sent that up as our nomination packet. Still nothing. So the next year we bought footage from the Today Show when Arthur Ashe was talking about my grandfather and his book, The Negro in Sports. And Brian Gumbel asked him, this is around 1990, said, Arthur, why'd you write this book? Surely this hasn't been done before. And he said, yes, the first one to do it was Edwin Henderson, the first public appointed physical education teacher in the country. Okay, so we put that in the video, burned 28 more copies and sent that up there. Still nothing, but we kept at it. That was the thing. And the next year after that, YouTube became a reality. So we didn't have to burn any more DVDs. We just put a link and send it up there, and everybody got it. Still, it took 8 years, and it finally got to the point where we asked the Basketball Hall of Fame, do we need to submit another nomination this year? And they said, oh no, we have more than enough. Please don't send us anything else. And so, and then there was a guy named Manny Jackson who owned the Harlem Globetrotters, black guy. And he became the chair of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. And he started a special ed category for African Americans that had been overlooked. It was called the Early African Americans Pioneers Special Ed category, direct special. In other words, you didn't go through the nomination, it was a special election. Right. So you were just elected, and then you didn't have to go through the nomination. And the first one to go under that category was someone who shouldn't have had to go under that category at all, Goose Tatum of the Harlem Globetrotters. Because Goose Tatum was known all over the world, much more than Bill Russell even, because the Harlem Globetrotters got around.
Right,
you know?
Right.
But still, the first year, he was the one that got in under that category. And the second year, my grandfather was elected to the Hall of Fame. I was just up there a weekend before last, doing a book signing and a lecture in the Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. Um, and boy, that place has really changed in the last 11 years since my grandfather was inducted. It's much more interactive now. Um, if you're looking for a place to take your kids to learn about basketball, Springfield, Mass. That's the place to be.
You know, I think as you tell this story, what strikes me is the tenacity. Um, you could have given up after the first year or the second year, maybe even the third year, but you continue to move forward because I'm sure that this story was that important to you that that you knew that your grandfather's name needed to be immortalized. What was it that kept you going? That said, I'm just going to keep trying.
Well, I felt strongly that he was worthy. I felt that it was a story that needed to be told. From my degree in history from Tuskegee, I knew that the dots connected and he should be there. And so my wife and I, we just kept at it. And we kept doing interviews, and we did a program with the Smithsonian on the emergence and legacy of Black basketball. And the other partners were Howard University and the National YMCA. Through my work as a nonprofit, the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation, I've built this tenacity to not take no, that whenever there's a no, there's always an answer, or there's a door is shut, there's a window that's open, and so I just felt that it was something that would happen. Absolutely. And I just had to keep at it.
Yeah, I think and it's funny how social media basically had to come along before people really stood up and took notice. But and I think in this social media age, we are starting to learn more about our trailblazers. It's not just the big names anymore. We're hearing about the trailblazers that sometimes we just didn't hear about. Maybe word of mouth didn't get around as much as some others did. And so then we find out that there were other people that we owe a lot to. And it feels like your grandfather is one of those people. He was able to put Black basketball on the map, so to speak.
When I was growing up, I really didn't hear this story about him in basketball. I knew that he was a prolific author, writing several books, including the first chronicling of African-American athletes and a Spalding handbook published between 1910 and 1913. I knew of his civil rights work here in where I live right now, Falls Church, Virginia, starting the first rural branch of the NAACP in 1915. But it took some real digging to find out his legacy in basketball. Wow. And as I was telling you earlier, when I moved into his home. I inherited his home in Falls Church, Virginia. And I was rummaging around in the attic, and I found this box. And upon further inspection, I saw, papers and photos and documents. And that's when the light came on, that there was something here that had to do with this trillion-dollar industry of basketball entertainment. And so I jumped in with all 4 feet. And I was working at the time. I had to go out and work every day. My wife's a museum professional. She would sit here and she would write letters to, all of the contacts of people. And that's why when he was inducted, my wife told me, ain't no way you're going to go up on that stage and get this by yourself. I'm going to be up there too.
He said, I worked just as hard as you did on this.
If not more, yeah. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Well, what's also amazing to me is that, a couple of things. One, the relationship between you and your grandfather. I mean, it says a lot that he left you his home and you moved into his home and you learn more about him. I'm picturing the relationship that you had as you were growing up. And the other part is he was a big student of history from what I've read so far, and you are a huge student of history, and you continue not just with his story but to preserve African American history overall.
I learned an appreciation for African American history from my grandfather, through his books, through his contacts, and through, you know, the various places where we lived. I grew up in Tuskegee, Alabama, which was a very rich African American cultural environment. My family was from Washington, D.C., another very rich cultural environment. We spent our summers at a place called Highland Beach, which was started by Frederick Douglass's son. Okay. And so I came through this naturally. I mean, you might look at me and you might wonder, you know, oh, you're mixed. Yeah, but my mind is African American. I'm socialized as an African American. You know, and I probably know more about African American history and African history than the average person, or even a darker complexion. Doesn't matter how light you are.
Exactly.
It's what's up here that counts. And I'm very black up here.
I like that. And you're very black up here. And that's something that you experienced a lot growing up, is, you know, because of your lighter skin, maybe people thinking that you weren't black enough or you didn't know enough about the history or anything like that?
And I was always second guessed, yeah. Or sometimes they say, oh, you must be the police, you know, or some other idiotic point of view, you know. But, you know, I love black people. Okay. And I have always been, when I was in college, they wanted me to take this course called Western Civilization. You know, I rejected that. And I got into a big argument with my professor. He was trying to be nice, but I told him, ain't no way the Greeks invented civilization.
So you were that young man that was always challenging.
I was very challenging. You know, and I was with a group of people. We would always be challenging, you know, our professors, particularly if they were well, I was always challenging. But I grew up kind of radical too. You know, growing up in Tuskegee, you know, there was a radical element. Stokely Carmichael, when he came to Alabama to go to Lowndes County to start the Black Panther Party, one man, one vote. A lot of people don't know about that.
Yeah.
He used to come by and visit with my father, who was also a Howard University alumni. And I would try to stay up to hear what they were talking about, you know, as I was supposed to be asleep. And, you know, and Tuskegee, you know, I was born in a time when I was born 3 months before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat in Montgomery. You know, and so I was on the front lines of the civil rights struggle. Yeah, I've been called the N-word. I have experienced prejudice and discrimination. But also, you have to understand that your parents shielded you from a lot of that as well. You know, when we used to travel from Alabama up here to Highland Beach every summer, my mother would say, oh, we're going to have a picnic. I fried some chicken. We're going to stop on the way and have a picnic. And we're going to stop and stay at the Webb's house in Greensboro. But those were things that they told us because you may not be able to get a room to sleep in at night. You may not be able to be served at a restaurant on the way up through the Jim Crow South. And so your parents were shields against that ugliness that we know as segregation and discrimination. That was my experience.
It's interesting that you say that. I remember my mom tells this story of, we're from New Orleans, and she was on the bus headed, we all rode the city bus, and the city buses. And at that time, she was about 13 years old, riding back on the bus, and they wound up going through a crowd of angry white people. They were beating on the bus, just shouting, and the bus driver kept them, told them to get down, and he started driving really slow to get through the crowd. And then when he finally was able to get out of the crowd, he took the kids to their stop, and then she noticed her mother was at the stop waiting for her. And she said, my mom's never at the bus stop waiting for me. So she didn't understand what was going on. And she didn't know what was going on until she got home and they watched the news, and the Civil Rights Bill had just been passed. And she said before then, she had and she never thought about racism in that context, because they lived in their section of town. They were happy. They went to school, they came back. And she said her parents tried to shield them from the ugliness. So basically that was around them. They were happy in their community. So as you tell your story, I think about my mom and how she was also shielded. And a lot of times parents don't want their kids to see, they want them to know what's going on around them, but at the same time, they don't want them to see the ugliness. So they kind of shield them from it.
Exactly. And growing up in Tuskegee, my father was the director of the George Washington Carver Research Foundation. My mother was a professor of early childhood education and director of the nursery school. So I basically grew up on the campus, and so that was my cocoon, and Tuskegee was, I guess, around 75-80% Black at that time too. And so my world, we had everything that we needed. We had stores, we had food, we had a rich cultural environment through the university where there was lectures and there was music, there was sports, there were everything that we needed, we had. Now, there were times that we did go to Montgomery, to get clothes, or to Auburn to get clothes.
Mm-hmm.
And, but for the most part, and the other thing is that during segregation, like people were more willing to give of their time and efforts to create a cohesive, loving community. We had community during segregation.
Right.
Now everything seems to be so fragmented, and everybody's going their own separate ways. There's rugged individualism, or whatever you would call it. And so integration was, in my opinion, truly a double-edged sword. If you let's look at Jackie Robinson, for instance.
Right.
He broke the color line, but he also broke the back of the Negro League too. Within a few years,
it was gone.
It was gone, and so the ownership of sports franchises, professional sports franchises, took a big hit when that happened. And if you look at the Negro League, for instance, when they came to town, they interjected revenue into that Black community. And when they folded, a lot of the inner cities folded also.
Wow. See, this is why it's so important what you're doing, to preserve history. And I don't even think I told people that, you were appointed to the Falls Church City Council board. And then you also had this initiative project, the Equity Initiative Project. If you want to take a second to talk about that. Or you were
I was on the not the city council, but the school board.
Yes, the city school board.
And I was I have a contract with the schools. There's an equity initiative to interject local and diverse histories into the curriculum. And the school system where I live in Falls Church City is the #1 school district in the state of Virginia, and it's also probably the #1 school system, public school system, that is, in the whole Washington, D.C. area, sometimes known as the DMV. And so I had the pleasure of serving on that board. And I have the pleasure now of working with the board, not working for the board. Now, I spent 25 years in the classroom, so I know the difference. I'd much rather work with than work for.
I hear you. I hear you. Now, the foundation is still active.
Yes, the Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation. I started that in 1997, and we started out raising money for an annual music festival, and to build a civil rights monument. Our raison d'etre is the history around the creation of the first rural branch of the NAACP in 1915, 6 years after the formation of the whole group, the NAACP. And it's been a labor of love, like to live in the house. A lot of the stuff in that box were things that were used to cultivate that history. And it's funny when something is right, and when God wants something to happen, he sends you someone. And that's how I knew that I was on the right track with what I was doing. We've never had a lot of money, but we were always very rich in ideas. Okay. And with ideas, you can attract money. And that's what we've been very successful at.
Amazing.
And that's how, that's how we've been able to build a monument, historic site, heritage trail, mural district, get the middle school name from my grandmother, and get a section of the town now called the Tenor Hill Historic and Cultural District. And so I know I'm tooting my own horn right now, but I just have to say that if I don't toot it, who will? Right.
I'm not mad at it. I'm not, because without your work, who would have known that this much history was in Falls Church?
Exactly. Precisely. And we weren't always really as well thought of here in the community, and a community that's basically 95% white. But at one time it was 42% Black.
Wow.
People of their history too.
Wow. Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the half hour.
Well, it's been marginalized.
Okay. I'm sorry, we broke up a little bit. I was just saying, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the half hour. But I see a poster of the book cover behind you. Do you have a book with you that you can show us the cover?
No, I don't. They're in the other room.
Oh, that's okay. But we can still see the cover behind you, though.
This is a postcard that I.
There we
Okay,
go.
and in the back there's a QR code,
And the book was
but
just
people can go
released.
to my website. My website is yes.
No, I'm saying the book was just released back in February, and we do have a link to the book if people would like to click the link in the chat and order a copy of this book. This is a huge part of our history that we just did not know about before. And so, like I said, I thank you for the work that you put into making sure that we were able to preserve this history and learn more about the trailblazers who came before us.
Well, thank you for having me. And my website, www.grandfatherblackbasketball.com. You go there, I have photos, documents, letters that help to tell the story.
Awesome. Okay, well, the website is on the screen right now, and it's also in the chat. So please, please, please make sure you click this link, purchase this book, and learn more about our history. Mr. E.B. Henderson, Mr. E.B. Henderson. Make sure that you learn more about him and what he's done for the sport of basketball. But I want to thank you, Mr. Edwin, for joining me tonight. And thank you for sharing your history with us. And I'm going to be in touch soon because we need to have you back on the show. You've done so much for preserving our history right here in the DMV. And this deserves a whole new conversation. So I hope to talk with you again soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. You have a great night. All right, y'all. That was Edwin Bancroft Henderson. And so there we go. So we're about to move over to our next guest. But before we do, for those of you who might have missed the announcement last week, we did unveil the authors who are going to be a part of this coming year's Black History Month Literary Weekend. And there were a couple of authors missing from the author announcement. So we are going to show it once again. So watch this. All right, y'all. That was the Black History Month Literary Weekend. As you saw, tickets go on sale December 1st. So stay in touch with us so you can know what's going on. But in the meantime, I met this amazing gentleman in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Book Festival with Literacy Nation. And he just said some things I just thought that everybody needed to hear. So I invited him to the Horizons Author Lounge so we can get to know him together. So hello, Corey.
Hello. Thank you for having me today.
Well, thank you for being here. Well, how's it going? How's everything going?
Good. Good. We're on that journey of debut novel. So, this is ups, it's downs, and, you're just trying to get out there and give the world your baby, so to say. This thing you've loved for so long. Now it's out
Yeah.
there and everybody else loves it too.
And that is so true. I mean, our books are our babies. I don't care how many books that we write, all of them are going to be our babies, and we want people to love them just as much as we love them. But sometimes I think we think because we've written a book and because we love our baby the way we do, that everybody's just going to know it's there. And we forget to promote our baby and tell the world about our baby.
No, I absolutely agree. You kind of want that to happen. And you'd love for you to push a button and the whole world's like, oh, look at this thing. But the truth of the matter is, especially for self-publishers, it's a lot of work, a lot of boots to the ground, a lot of, almost door to door at some points. But that's what you got to do. If you want to make a name for yourself, if, like you said, if you want your baby to thrive, you got to put the work in. Nothing happens overnight. And it's all about the passion, dedication.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me about your books.
Okay, so I actually just finished my debut novel, The War Ongoing Knightfall. It released back in July, and it is a sci-fi fantasy hybrid, epic. I very inspired by the things I love: cinema, video games, epic novels like Lord of the Rings, and so on. And I just felt I wanted to put my touch on that industry, on that genre. I come from a background in art, comic book art, illustrations, and things like that. So this was a big change for me. I didn't know I had it in me, I always say. And then, I jokingly say, well, 52 chapters later, I must have had it in me. Something worked.
52 chapters, really?
Yeah, no, it's a big guy. I jokingly, like, at no point thought it was going to be that big of a story, but then you get writing, and I think any good writer or any writer who loves what they're doing will find that sometimes you just get into the character yourself. You're almost acting while you're writing, and you're putting out these characters, these words, and you want to do them justice. So, what you thought might have been a page becomes a chapter, kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, you just hope it worked out well. And luckily, feedback is saying it worked out pretty well.
Awesome. So tell us about the storyline.
So at its core, it is a fantastical world with some high-tech inspiration in there, but it is a story about people and their bonds. And how far will people go to honor someone they love or something they cared about, or an idea that they just need everyone else to know. So at its baseline, we have three main characters that in this fantasy hybrid world are tasked on doing something that will lead to them honoring someone they all cared about, a found family, so to say. None of them by blood, but all of them see each other like they take a bullet for each other. And on that journey, they experience this beautiful world of grandiose, and the people in it and the creatures in it and the other, races in it, and how that affects them is really where the story gets its heart from.
Oh, well, now, have you always been into fantasy fiction?
Yeah, absolutely. I as young, had a hard time reading. I didn't click for me young. So my parents, they were wise enough and smart enough and open enough to know, hey, let's try like comic books or video games and things like that, where I am reading a lot, but it kind of tricks my brain into thinking I'm doing so. So because of that, I immediately love those kind of things. And my family has a historic talent for art. So I was always drawing and everything like that. So over time, it just all clicked. It all became one passion. My father introduced me to the action movies of the 80s and everything like that. And that became us going to see Lord of the Rings and every Marvel movie and all that. And so that's where the love of cinema came from. And so I was built to be the ultimate nerd at the end of the day.
That's a liner. I like that. Built to be the ultimate nerd. So when you write a book that's as long as this one, first of all, I think that fantasy fiction actually lends itself to be longer. I've not seen a lot of short books that are or a lot of short fantasy fiction books. So, but I don't think I've seen it 52 chapters. So, was this a case where you were you wanted to continue to drive the characters throughout the story, or did you get to a part and say, no, I need to add a little more here? Like, when did you know when to stop? When to say, okay, this is enough?
So the 52 chapters, slightly misleading, only because one of the ideas going in was, as someone, like I said, had trouble reading young, I try to make them smaller chapters. I have a friend that I talked with the whole process, and I said, hey, what leads to you dropping off a book? I know you love Lord of the Rings and stuff. And he said, oh, man, I can't read 30 pages a night. I just can't do it. And I said, okay, well, that's good, because I'm going to try to keep it low. So yes, it is a long book. I think the total is just over 500 pages. But the chapters are small and almost bite-sized. My idea was I want somebody to be able to read once a night, like one chapter a night, but I want them to be hooked, that they want to read more, but feel content if they get through one. But with that said, absolutely did I not think it was going to be this long to start. But when you're building a world, when you're creating something, I jokingly told my wife, I said, next book, it's going to be one person. It's going to take place in my backyard so that I don't have to make a single thing up and I can just write what I see. Well, I couldn't do that. I had to write something I saw in my head that I had to tell people what I'm seeing. And, I could tell them anything I want, but I had to tell them in detail. I had to make sure they believed it. I could tell them the sky is red, but I have to tell them why too, or else they're just not going to get it. They're going to be like, oh man, I don't, he's just saying stuff. So that's actually where a lot of the length, I think, comes from. And as I'm working on this follow-up now, I'm finding that it's a little easier because, I've already done that legwork. You did that heavy lifting in that first book.
Created that world. So
exactly.
It's the same world in the second book, and you can just build on that.
Exactly. And, you would hope no one goes into the second book blind per se. So instead of giving them these details, you can give them more breadcrumby stuff. And it's a different change of pace, but I loved creating the world. I at no point was like, oh man, this is too much. It was like, no, if I felt it needed to be told, it was said in the book, and I cut stuff for sure. But in order for you to love these characters, in order for you to understand their pain, their suffering, their cares, their loves, you have to understand the world they're in. And that took 52 chapters.
Wow. I like it though. I like where you're going. So now the book has been out since July. How has the feedback been so far?
Feedback has actually been very positive. I think on Amazon we're sitting at just under 5 stars right now, and the first professional review we got was 4 out of 5 stars, and I couldn't have been happier. Like you said, we put this out in the world, and people might hate it, and it was my first time, so I didn't know what. And to get such strong feedback, it's very nice, and actually it gives you that motivation to go knock on more doors, to do more press, because now when people do get it in their hands, there's a good chance they're going to love it. And that's all you really want at the end of the day. You want people to care as much as you did. And to me, it's been very nice to see that positive feedback.
Now, so how did you get involved? Because I said at the top of our segment that we actually met, I believe, in Philadelphia at the Philadelphia Book Festival, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So
that was actually. I was saying that was my first show for the book, actually.
Really? Wow.
Yep.
How did it go for you?
Yeah, it did very well there. I was actually very surprised at how well it did. I was ecstatic, to be honest, coming home.
Oh, well, now that you got your first book signing, first book festival under your belt, it's time to do some more.
Yep. I'm on the book tour, I say, little baby steps here and there, but hopefully worldwide sooner than later.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations on getting that first book signing under your belt. And
Yep,
you
thank
did it
you.
with such a positive group of people. Literacy Nation has just been amazing. I've met them a couple years ago, I believe, but I really just got involved like maybe a few months ago. And they are very, very, very supportive, and they show a lot of love. I just love to see what they're doing. So hopefully you'll get to do some more work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I will not turn down the chance to go again. Like you said, the sense of community and the sense of empowerment is great. It's what we need. All those people in the room kind of all knew the same thing. How hard this is to do. It's not simple. It takes a lot out of you mentally, sometimes physically, but with any form of art. That happened. So it was great to have a group of people who understood that and weren't there to kind of stab you in the back or try to undercut you. They honestly wanted to see us all thrive, and I thought that was beautiful.
Wonderful. So now, do you have any other book events coming up anytime soon?
Yes. In next week, next Wednesday, I will be doing a book signing at one of our local comic book shops here in New Jersey, Heroes Comics in Burlington. They've set me up an all-day table. Get to show off the book as well as some of my artwork, so that's going to be fun. And then later in the month, I will have my first Barnes & Noble event, which is exciting, to be in a big store like that. Yeah, so that. Mm-hmm.
So, now you mentioned artwork. Did you do the art for your own cover?
Yes, I did all the art for the book and the cover, and then every chapter page there was also artwork that was all done by me. So, like I said, I started out as an artist, and I talked about this a little bit at the convention. So I always wanted to bring that in, and I love the mixture of the two. The being able to read and then see something and be like, oh man, that is what my brain thought. And, that is the image I was picturing, or maybe it's not, but, oh, now I understand a little bit more. So I've always loved that. And like I said, originally the passion was always going to be comic books. And I tried, and it honestly wasn't for me. I would love it to have been, and it wasn't. And I'm finding that this is, and I love that I can bring my artwork to that as well.
Wow. Now, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about diversity. Are we talking diversity in art or diversity in writing, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, I'd honestly say both. It was something I think I mentioned to you when we first met. Is I love the fantasy genre. I love all these. But there isn't a ton of representation in it. And sometimes it's just a matter of when it was written or the timepiece it takes place. But when I went into this, I said, I am making up this world. It doesn't matter what color you are, because I'm making the rules. So why should the color of someone's skin or their religion or who they love, anything like that, why should that matter? That shouldn't be a problem. It's my world. I don't want that to be a problem. And I want people to be able to come in and see themselves in this, because as much as you can love a character, it's so much easier to love them when there's a little bit of you in it. And that was always the goal. I have an ensemble cast. They shouldn't all be the same person. It should be a great diverse mix of characters and thoughts and outlooks. And that to me makes a more appealing story, because if everybody, is, they all think the same and do the exact same thing, well, that's boring.
Right.
Conflict isn't necessarily a bad thing sometimes, because that's how you tell a more intriguing story. You should be able to look across the room at somebody else and spend a moment in their shoes and decide, oh wow, maybe they are right, or hey, maybe I don't believe in that, but I understand. So that was always something I wanted to do from square one. And it comes to the art too. You always want to see different types of art. Diversity in art is not just the people, but it's styles. Everybody has a different type of style and everything like that. And they should all be accepted if they are there for positive intent. So there was definitely, from day one, that is what I wanted to see. A world where the color skin, who you are, that's not the problem. Everything else in the world is the problem. So that's where the book comes to play.
So I was just going to ask you, and I think you actually answered it for me already, but would you say that the world that you created in your books is a bit of a utopia?
I'd say in points. I think like any utopia, there's going to be people who think it's a utopia, and then the outside world might say, no, some of the stuff you're doing might not be exactly as great as you think. Where the true utopias, some of the other guys across the street will be like, no, I don't like that at all. And the truth of the matter is, they have hate in them. And so would I say the world as a whole is utopia? Absolutely not. I think there's pockets of it. And I think by the end of the book, you're seeing the people who do want it to be that utopia. And now it's a matter of, hey, can they get it there?
Wow. So now you said you're already working on the second book. Are you rushing to get that one out anytime soon?
Soon is a relative term. I would say from start to finish, this one, I probably started this back in 2020, started the process, the writing down, this scripting out and everything. And it took me longer than I thought. Some of that is we went through a pandemic in between there. And I am a father of 3. So, my hands are constantly full. And so, huh?
How old are the babies?
So I have a 13-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 7-year-old. So I run the gamut. Yeah, they're all over the place. So when you say soon, I would hope sooner than the first one took, but people don't know how long the first one took. So I would hope to, within the next 2 years, have that next one out. I'll say this now, and someone will come back to me and laugh at me. I do think this one will be shorter, just by the nature. But let's talk in a little bit whether or not I got that right.
Well, we did put the link to the book on the screen as well as in the chat. Yeah. So if you were into fantasy fiction, this is a read for you. You might want to check it out. So go ahead and click on this link. Our goal is for the books. Oh, wow, that is a thick book. Turn it to the side.
Oh, yeah, I can absolutely show you inside. So it's got a special covers and stuff on the front. And then we'll get to a page of fun artwork. You see there's artwork on every page, on all the pages. It's nice and big. My wife says the words are small, so.
Well, I noticed that this is also a hardcover.
Yes, I have it in hard, paper, and digital. So I wanted to make sure. I have the paper here. Let's see. Looks smaller in paper. Should have shown that. So this is the paperback. Doesn't have the nice cover, but inside we have a full map of the world. So you can see that. Also hand drawn by me, everything like that. So yeah, no, we have it. Options. It's how the world goes around, right? You gotta. So I'm giving people as many options as they can.
Congratulations on making the investment in a hardcover book, because a lot of people are not going toward hardcover anymore because they feel that they're a little too expensive, and then you have to sell it more expensive, and some people don't want to buy the hardcover books. I enjoy a good hardcover though. Yeah,
I agree too. And that was actually we talk about being a first-time writer. That was my biggest surprise. I love hardback book. I think there's a quality and a beauty to them, but they are much harder to sell. So I sell the paperback much more, and then I get a lot of people who are like, "Well, I'm a collector. I want to do the hardback and stuff like that." So I was actually very surprised by that, because I'm with you. I think it's an investment. I think it's it helps show to the naked eye the art that a book is. I think I said it when we first met, that people shop with their eyes before anything else. So if something looks similar or quote unquote cheap, a lot of people aren't going to look at it. They're going to sit there and be like, well, I don't want that. But you see something that's premium, something that stands out. That's the color scheme was purposely done that because people will look at a book before they even pick it up. And if they glance at it and it doesn't catch their eyes, they're not going to do anything with it. So
I think of it as wine. I'm a wine drinker, but when I'm going to the wine shop and I'm looking at the different wines, if I see a wine label that looks a little cartoony, kind of thrown together, my mind automatically says, okay, that's cheap wine. It's not going to taste good. It's probably too sweet. That's not the one I want. And then I'll go to the one that has the demure, the elegant. You like how I threw that demure?
That word is so new. This is how I know I'm getting older. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, but when I go to the demure looking label, I was like, oh, okay, see, that attracts my attention. And my mind goes right there and say, okay, that's probably some good wine. Yeah. And sometimes it's sweet too. So, sometimes the cover will trick you.
Yeah, and I just we have to give it out to the artists and the graphic designers and all them out there. I think we take for granted sometimes how important they are to us. And especially in this industry, they really can make the difference.
Absolutely. Well, Corey, I'm really enjoying our conversation. I knew we were going to have a good conversation.
Yeah, I'm glad. After the first guy, I was like, oh man, how do I follow that?
I know. I was like, wow, he was just breaking it down. I was like, that's why I said I'm gonna have to have him back on the show because there was I didn't even get a chance to even talk to him about because the half hour went so quickly.
I said he sounded like a fountain of knowledge. He probably is a great person to sit down for an hour or so and listen to. I thought it was amazing.
Well, I tell you what, your story is amazing as well, and I want to thank you once again for joining me in the Horizons Author Lounge. If you'd ever like to come back, just say the word.
Yeah, absolutely.
Once your next book is done, if you want to come back, just say the word.
Absolutely. I loved our time here, and I look forward to doing it again.
All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening. I really appreciate you.
You too. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. All right, y'all. Well, we have come to the end of the Horizons Author Lounge. I hope you guys had as great a time as I did. I told you I had a treat for you guys tonight, and I hope you believe me. I mean, our two guests tonight were just amazing. Two different stories, but two very great and compelling stories. And we have somebody on YouTube said that was his homeboy. So I'm glad that we got to feature your boy. We appreciate you joining the show. So guys, I want to thank all of you because of you, we have moved up to 500 subscribers on YouTube, and we're on that road to monetization. So continue to spread the word about the Horizons Author Lounge and the way we're just supporting independent authors. Yonder, I would love to have you on the show. I told Yonder he forgot that we'd actually met years ago when we both got into the business. And so I really count it all joy when I'm still in touch with many people that I met 20 years ago when I first got into this business. So yes, Yonder, I would love to have you on the show. But in the meantime, I'm just going to run these videos once again because I want to remind you of all of the great things that we are doing with Meet the World Image Solutions, starting with
Did you know your love for books could change lives? The For the Culture Book Awards isn't just any book contest. It's a celebration of diverse authors who create captivating stories that uplift African American culture. But here's the real magic. All proceeds from this amazing contest go straight to the Meet the World Image Solutions essay and scholarship programs. Yep, you heard that right. Every submitted book doesn't just uplift an author. It supports students who need a helping hand with their education. It's a win-win. Imagine the joy of knowing your book could help fund scholarships for talented young minds. It's about giving back to the community and opening doors for the next generation of writers, thinkers, and leaders. Submit your recently published fiction novel, spread the word, and let's make a difference together. Let's turn the page to a brighter future, one book at a time.
All right, y'all. That is the For the Culture Book Awards. I really want you guys to submit your books. If you are a fiction author and you have published your book within the last 2 years, you need to be a part of this contest, not just for the exposure, but also just as the spot said, you're going to be supporting young writers, my 8th grade contest, my 9th grade essay contest, and my graduating senior scholarship. It's all going to be funded from this contest. So this is a contest with a purpose, and I really want you guys to be a part of it. So please consider submitting your book to the Horticulture Book Awards. The website is right here on the screen, www.mtwimagesolutions.com/contest. And then you also may have seen that we are going to have a writer's cruise very soon. So if you want more information about the writer's cruise, we will put that link on the screen as well. It's about to come up now. I'm not going to run the spot because we're running out of time, but please make sure you go to the link right here, www.mtwimagesolutions.com/cruise. The first 15 people to sign up will get a $200 discount. And we're going to have a good time. It's not just going to be a bunch of work on the cruise. We're going to enjoy ourselves. We're going to do cruises. We're going to party. And we're going to have some peace and quiet writing time so you can finally get that book done. And also, if you're already an author, to network with some other authors. It's going to be amazing. So stay in touch with the Meet the World Image Solutions Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X pages for more information, as well as the TikTok page. There's TikTok as well. We want you guys to be a big part of this. So that's all we have for tonight, guys. Thank you once again for supporting the show, helping us to grow, helping us to go down that road to monetization so we can continue to support more and more independent authors. That's what this is all about. So until next week, you guys have a wonderful evening, and I'll see you tomorrow on Black Authors Matter TV on the National Black Book Festival Facebook page. So more to come, guys. Stay in touch and let's enjoy this ride. Bye-bye.